One of the most disappointing things in later seasons of Game of Thrones is the removal of Young Griff, aka Aegon the Sixth, because he's arguably the most qualified, the most beautiful, and the most likely to sit the Iron Throne.
Okay, I don't know about the most beautiful right off the hop, because we do have to acknowledge that the one true heir to the throne is, in fact, Stannis Baratheon, first of his name.
Sorry. My apologies.
Yeah, right. Our based bald boy. However, if there had to be a second place, I do think it would be Young Griff, a.k.a. not Aegon Targaryen, but Aegon Targaryen, the true son of Rhaegar Targaryen.
It's really weird that they actually didn't have this character in it. It's just, I guess, another just thread they didn't want to try to weave back into the seasons. They really just kind of wanted to sum it up later. Because to get the full understanding of Aegon, a.k.a. Young Griff, a.k.a. Aegon, is you have to understand, like, oh, yeah, we really don't know his true backstory. Like, who is he really? Because we are being told he's disguised as just the son of John Connington, but he's actually, like, being propped up by Varys to be the son of Rhaegar. But then he actually might not even be that. He actually might just be a Blackfire baby that Varys has, and he's just using kind of a loophole, or say plot hole possibly in the story. Like, oh, maybe if I just said I switch these babies out. He's retconning basically Robert's Rebellion, you know?
He's retconning real life. Yeah, exactly. Like, there's a lot of different theories about who he could be. He could be Illyrio's son as well. His first wife could possibly have been a Blackfire, because they talk about how the male line of Blackfires went extinct, but they never say anything about the female line, I guess, and they do, I think, reference Dany as reminding Illyrio of his first love who died a while back. So maybe that's a reference to, his first wife looking Valyrian, and then that being a Blackfire, and Young Griff being his son. That's a possibility. There's a lot of different ways this could go. He could also just be a random Valyrian kid off the street, right, over in Essos, that they decided to, like, hatch this scheme about. But all that stuff is conjecture. It's a huge area for speculation. But what they're telling us on paper, pen on paper, George himself, says that he is Aegon Targaryen, the son of Rhaegar Targaryen. He survived. They did a baby swap when the Mountain allegedly murdered Elia Martell and her children. And here he is. He was raised like Jaehaerys the First in epic fashion. Dude, it's actually funny. I like hearing Varys talk about Young Griff. He talks about him like he's Marcus Brody from Indiana Jones 3, you know what I'm talking about? He talks like he speaks a million languages. He's fought with the best swordsmen. He's lived with sailors and squalor. He knows what it feels like to suffer. With any luck, he's got the throne already. You know, that kind of thing, right?
Exactly.
So they're building a lot of hype around this guy, and for me, it would be a little bit disappointing if he just turns out to be a fake.
Well, I don't even know if that even plays a part in all of it, too, because even if he's not legitimate, if he's the best guy for the job, why not? If he looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, ends up being like a chicken, it's not going to bother me all that much if I just go outside and like, yeah, that's a duck.
I'll eat it no matter what.
I'll eat it. Because, like, you look at him, and like you said, the way he was raised, the way he was basically groomed to be a king, and the way he views his responsibilities, the duty of being a king, versus Dany, who's just like, kill the slavers. Oh, no, I have an issue. What do? I'm not going to seek great counsel. I'm just going to act on emotions and then just burn them all. Basically, anytime like this level is getting too difficult, I'm just going to turn on all the cheat codes and activate my dragons and then get through the situation.
Exactly. She is the epitome. She's the embodiment of what like a cringe Targaryen is. And this is why I bring up the comparison to Jaehaerys the First, because Jaehaerys the First was the person who ultimately took over from Maegor the Cruel, right?
The Cool, yeah,
and
I heard you.
Maegor the Cool, and while he's riding around Balerion the Black Dread, kind of being an alpha, and listen, Maegor is an alpha, he could back up everything that he claims to be on foot, not just on dragonback like the rest of the Targaryens, but Jaehaerys just kind of waltzed in there and out-alphaed Maegor for the spot, and sure, he owned the favor of the people at that point because they didn't like Maegor a lot, but to me, that's just another piece in Aegon's favor that draws that comparison and makes it more accurate, because I do think that when Aegon lands over here, it's not going to be a comparison to Maegor the Cruel, but it's going to be a comparison to Cersei, because Cersei's in charge right now, and no one likes Cersei, man. She's not doing a good job. She's no longer restrained by Tyrion or Tywin or Robert Baratheon or whoever needs to be there. She's unrestrained, and she runs everything absolutely terribly. I think Tommen is still alive, so yeah, he's probably going to get his ass killed too. But bottom line, when Aegon comes across here, they're going to welcome him with open arms versus Dany, where if they knew anything about Dany long term, I don't think they would. Not to mention she's a woman, which is going to be contested. Not to mention she has these dragons, and if we go by the show's logic, she's ready to just burn them all anyway. We might never even see what the people think of her. She might just kill them beforehand.
Yeah.
Aegon, there's no way it's going to be the case. John Connington's at his back. He's a smart dude. You know, he fled the country faster than Steve Harvey after Diddy got arrested right after he failed at the Battle of the Bells.
Steve Harvey left the United States?
The guys fact checked me on this. I'm pretty sure Steve Harvey fled the country recently. I just read that. I was like, are you serious? Steve Harvey's involved in all this stuff?
Survey says.
But I do think that he probably raised Aegon well. And if it's true what they say between Varys, Illyrio, and John Connington, if they really put Aegon through the ringer and made him basically live in squalor and then live as a knight would, I think they directly compare it to a knight. If he went through all these phases of life under like this kind of phantom supervision, because I think he thinks he is this orphan, right? So if he didn't,
right, if
he wasn't raised knowing he was safe under Illyrio and all these people, man, he definitely would have an attitude that would make a great king. Like he's been through it. He isn't just raised in royalty like so many of these guys are.
Right. No, he wasn't groomed in the lap of luxury, right? He was definitely brought into areas where he might feel uncomfortable. Also, he was actually properly trained. Not to say that Dany couldn't figure it out later, or, you know, Jon and whoever. I'm trying to think of other possible candidates other than the man as himself. Stannis is always going to be number one. But
of course, yeah.
Assuming he dies north of the wall to fighting the Night King and, you know, ending the Long Night. It wouldn't be the Night King because we're talking about the books, but ending the Long Night like Azor Ahai actually would. Maybe there needs to be somebody to warm the seat of the Iron Throne, which I think Varys is doing a good job too of getting Aegon, Young Griff ready to come over there too, because I think there's this theory that Varys and Illyrio were trying to get Viserys, the Dothraki, to come over to Westeros, make a mess of things, and then have Aegon from the top rope come in and just be like, I'm your savior. I will bring calm and
right.
Order to the realm. I'm actually the rightful heir. I've come at the turn of the tide. I've come. That would be great. And that's, myth making basically that Varys and Illyrio is doing. And they would have worked perfectly if it wasn't for Dany being unsufferable, cling her honor to her captive Khal Drogo, and then also infesting his wounds with the help of Mary Maz Thick.
Yeah, Mary Maz, dude, the Thicket Witch of the West. Absolutely, man. Oh, man.
Would
100%. But it's a terrible job. She did a terrible job with the whole thing. She throws wrenches and everything. And I guess it does speak to, it's not competence. It's like the opposite of competence. But who would have known that she'd be so... Yeah, if only there was a term to describe that. How do you think that happens, by the way? So let's go over this real quick. We know it's not really a spoiler because it's not even leaked. It's intentional. It's like a pre-release chapter from Winds of Winter. Mm-hmm. We know that Aegon and John Connington successfully take Storm's End. We know that's true. We don't know how it happens. It might happen diplomatically even. Like, who knows?
No Shadow
Storm's
Baby?
End, probably no Shadow Baby. I wouldn't think so. So, if he takes it, how does he go from there to taking King's Landing? Is it easy as well? Because like I was bringing up earlier, if he has the support of the common folk, which I don't know how hard it would really be to get, this might actually be kind of an uneventful taking of King's Landing unless Cersei gets some wildfire involved. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure John Connington wouldn't want to get some wildfire involved too. I think he's got a chip on his shoulder about failing at the Battle of the Bells, and I think he might take some more brutal tactics here if need be. And I don't think it would be even to common people, unlike Cersei, right? I think it would be more so just like, Lannisters, fuck their kids, fuck everybody in the Red Keep at this point. I don't care. I'll blow them all up.
He's like, I only love one man, and you guys just piss on his grave. Now it's time for me to piss on yours. That's John. John needs to let it go. Like, chill out, dude.
Dude, he's never going to let it go. He set himself in a nice situation, though. Have you ever seen... See, this is the thing. I think Aegon's temperament, too, needs to be quelled. We get a little hint that Aegon might be a little bit of a little bit of a aggro guy when he's playing chess with Tyrion, right? And he kind of gets pissed off when he loses, stands up, kicks the board over, and then makes Tyrion pick up the pieces, which, to me, the way I imagine that scene is kind of Chadley, right? Just kind of casually knocks it over, and it's like, pick up the pieces, bitch. It's like, if you want to talk about breaking the wheel, this is the guy that's breaking the wheel, Like, I'm not playing by the rules of chess. You forgot about this way I can win. Knock off the board, right? But assuming...
Listen, people in the comments, we know it's not chess. It's called, I forgot what it's called. It's something else, but go ahead.
Yeah, there's like a dragon on the board and everything else. It's like their version of chess. But assuming that people's little mind game theories are true, and he really did throw a little baby fit here, right? Let's just assume that for a second. He needs to be monitored somehow and keep that temper under control. And how does that happen? You got to release that tea once in a while. And have you ever seen when people who breed horses, or like they have race horses, they need to let off some steam from those horses, right? And so they kind of use one of those makeshift condom things on them. You ever seen that? Like extract their semen. I'm not sure if it's for breeding or what, but they actually use that on them. I think it's to calm the horses down or something like that for like race horses. I don't know. Let us know in the comments if you know what this is for.
Send some links, please, to us as well. Video links. Thank you.
Yeah, please and thank you. I think that's what John Connington's role is for Young Griff for Aegon. I think he's I think he's John Condom. I think because he looks like Rhaegar, right? He gets that nice arch in his back. He's like, all right, go ahead, and Aegon just gets it done. He's not gay. He just gets it done.
You know what? All the people that were trashing us for our mountain take, defending him, saying, old Greggy boy was misunderstood. I'm sure they would buy it. They would buy this theory. They actually probably would love this and probably have some fanfic of this situation actually happening. But they'll never watch this far into the video to enjoy our fanfic of these two. He's like, oh, I'm just so built up. This little man was trying to get me going. He's like, all right, let's do it.
Yo, Grace, your temper's acting up. It's like, whatever.
But let's not also forget how annoying it might be to be schooled by Tyrion and his like little shit-eating grin without a nose because it's book canon, right? He's just like the most obnoxious person to look at, and on top of it, he's intellectually battling you. You're outmatched that way, and you're losing to him. It's like
it'd be frustrating.
Shove this boy right up the ass. I'm gonna pound him, John Connington.
Well, like I said, I actually don't think that it was out of frustration. I think it's more of a breaker of the wheel situation. He just stands up casually. Tyrion's like, what's going on? I thought we were playing a game here. I was just giving you a life lesson about who to trust. And then Jon just kind of casually knocks it over. It's like, there, I win. I don't trust you, bitch. Pick up the pieces. I think that's more so what it is. So I think he's in a good position. I think he has a nice ruling mentality. Yeah, that's probably why he'd be better than Dany, where do you think Dany fits into all this? Like, first of all, do you think that Griff gets the throne easily after taking Storm's End? And then two, what ends up happening with Dany after that?
My theory or my guess is that he will be able to take the throne, young Griff. He's going to sit there on the throne. And then Dany's going to take Dragonstone. And we're basically going to have a kind of homage to House of the Dragon events, which is the Dance of Dragons, right? When you have both of the Targaryens sitting in one in the Red Keep and the other one on Dragonstone. And then they battle it out with, one only has a dragon. But it'd be awesome somehow if Aegon was able to get a dragon from Dany somehow, right? It's like, oh, I do sense a Targaryen blood here. I'm going to leave. I'm actually going to side with this guy. That would be kind of similar to how it goes in the TV show that Dany loses a dragon to the Night King. I don't like that. I think that's stupid. But what if she loses it to another Targaryen or, Blackfire, that people might say?
With Rhaegal specifically, that'd be super cool. And I actually have a theory about this. I think that will happen, and I think it is half a reference to Dance of the Dragons. I don't want to spoil Dance of the Dragons, but I think it'll be a more diplomatic form of events. I think basically Dany will end up coming over with young Griff already on the throne, and I don't think that Griff is very aggro toward Dany right away. I think he wants to marry her, and he's expressed that he wants to marry her in Dance with Dragons book, and I think she will show up, obviously not wanting that. She's gonna be pissed that he's sitting on the throne. I think she shows up in an alpha way, trying to chad him out of the throne. I think she'll have all three of her dragons with, and I think that she might, having no faith that he actually is a relative of hers, or maybe she just doesn't believe in the magical connection between Targaryens and dragons, and she thinks that these dragons are just so imprinted on her that there's no way there could be any malfeasance happening with it. I think maybe she would offer some kind of ultimatum, or maybe even somebody advises her to let this happen, or maybe even Varys is there, and so in the presence of everybody, right, to kind of throw Dany under the bus, being like, well, if he is not really a Targaryen, why don't you try to let him bond with one of your dragons? And if you were to make a reference, to House of the Dragons / Dance of Dragons, in this situation, young Griff would just probably get eaten by one of her dragons, right? But how sweet would it be if he does successfully get Rhaegal in this situation, he actually is tamed by Young Griff. It's like, what can Dany do? She can't just then immediately kill him. Like, in the eyes of the people, she would have nothing. And then maybe you could kind of go into the whole Mad Queen moment and ever kill everybody there. But I think that's lame, man. I would love to see Griff adopt a dragon. Dude, John Condom would just be clapping his little hands. It's Rhaegar 2.0, man.
Oh, dude, he's like, I want to do it on the dragon. He's like, dude, John Condom, please chill out.
Oh, I love that name, Your Grace. Thank you so much.
Well, I think if Young Griff actually wants to stand a chance against Dany when she comes over there, he needs backing from other lords. So whether he has some alliances within the Reach, I don't know, anywhere within the Stormlands that would bend the knee, possibly, I mean, by force, I guess now, because if he has Storm's End. But the other option is our favorite Dornish princess, Areola Martell. What if she actually married Aegon and they united their house once again, even though he technically should be half Martell, right? This is kind of a weird... Yeah, I guess that's not too bad in Westeros standards. It's not brother-sister. I think that's the biggest concern, because Tywin and his wife, I think they're like cousins.
No, I think cousins and like great nephews and shit, that's completely on the table,
Totally.
I think. I don't think that's, for basically any house. And I like that idea, but I do think that, at least based on what we know about Aegon already, I think he would be kind of saving himself for Dany. So I feel like he has to take the throne before getting any marriage. And I think Dorne backs him up anyway, because they hate the Lannisters with a passion. I don't think they were very keen on the Baratheons necessarily to begin with either, but they hate the Lannisters for sure. So if the Dornish have your back, I mean, the North and all these other places that hate the Lannisters too, why would they side with the Lannisters over Griff? I think people are intimidated by Dany and like the prospect of her coming over with dragons and the family-friendly Dothraki army. I think they don't like that so much that basically anything else, especially somebody who could kind of advertise this, hey, I know the Mad King was really bad, but think about before that. Like, dude, the Targaryens did some real good. Like, think about Jaehaerys, the King's Road, the Sept of Baelor. Like, we're the culture, man. We're the culture. Like, bring us back. Make Westeros great again. I think if you had that kind of mentality coming from Young Griff, it'd be really easy to sway a ton of the houses in the Seven Kingdoms.
Yeah, I totally agree. Especially after the War of the Five Kings, everything's in chaos still. We're still kind of licking our wounds within the Riverlands in the north, because the Iron Islands are just... I'm for whatever king takes out the Iron Islands, honestly, if I can just put my bias on the table there. But I can see how everyone might be looking for a new regime, because this one has been a complete mess. Everything's being called into question about legitimacy when it comes to the Baratheon children and whether or not they're Lannisters or not. And then you also have the capital being overthrown by the based faith militants cleaning up the streets of King's Landing. And I think a lot of small folk, like you said, might be looking for, hey, remember before, Aerys kept his nails 5 inches or lower nails of, when the Mad King, before we start calling him the Mad King, just Aerys II, old Airbud,
Airbud.
I'm trying to think of a funny thing for Aerys.
No, Airbud's good. Airbud's good. Airbud and John Condom, the dynamic duo of old. One thing to think about, too, is that I think that in the events to come, I think that Dany will inevitably end up allying with Victarion Greyjoy. Because I think Victarion is wanting to overthrow Euron. And, Dany needs a pass to get across the narrow sea to Westeros. She needs a boarding pass. She's on the no-fly list right now, and she's about to get
the NC pass, the narrow sea pass.
Yeah, she needs a narrow sea pass. She's already got the D pass and the Dothrakis. I think she comes over there with Victarion's forces, with his fleet. And what do you think happens if on your doorstep in King's Landing or wherever she ends up landing, Dragonstone, and then she comes to the Crown Lands or whatever, and she has a disgusting Dothraki army, an almost equally disgusting Unsullied army. Like, I know they're trained and they're like dedicated, but they have to be absolutely disgusting. Like, and they just look too foreign, right? Like, we don't want any part of that. The Dornish are going to spit on them. And then on top of that, like, oh, don't worry, guys. We have some Westerosi with us. We have some of your people. It's the Iron Islanders. I don't care if it's Victarion, dude. His armor is sweet. Yeah, whatever, okay? He's the coolest Greyjoy.
Yeah.
Arguably other than Euron. But they're going to hate that, man. It's like you say, whatever king sinks the Iron Islands is the one that I vote for. And I think that Aegon definitely takes out the trash when Dany shows up with that particular army. And after he claims the dragon too. Aegon's on the throne. Dany shows up. No one supports her. Like, what does she do?
I know. She's like, I came over here from Essos to Westeros while trying to basically snowball the biggest pile of shit of armies when it comes to Dothraki and then the Iron Islanders. And then people aren't welcoming me with open arms. Like, dude, do you even smell yourself at this point? You're covered in shit and salt. Like, you're nasty. Like, no one wants you. I don't know anyone, if you saw that force coming in thinking, this is going to go, first off, it's going to go well or peacefully, because think about like the wrath and destruction she has to inflict on people, like we saw in later seasons of Game of Thrones, for her actually to insert her claim or legitimacy on others. People are going to come in, people are going to like immediately push back because they have marriage alliances with people in King's Landing, right? Or the people sitting in the Iron Throne. The Tyrells, why would they back down? They have the tie to the Iron Throne right now. There's no reason why they would side with Dany at this point until basically they're cut off from everything. And I think the Tyrells are actually positioned pretty well. So as much as I would like the Reach, or especially Old Town, to position themselves to back Aegon, I don't know how they do that, but...
Well, that's I was going to bring that up too, man, because it's like right now the Tyrells kind of have their, per Mace at least. Mace has his big fucking fat ass eye on Storm's End as well, but we know Young Griff takes it. So that makes me think maybe there's a diplomatic solution there, and because I doubt that the Tyrells are wiped out by Jon Connington and Aegon. I really don't think that's the case. So if whenever Dany ends up showing up, if you have the Tyrells and therefore basically the Reach backing Aegon, like it's a pragmatic thing to do. The Hightowers might be in there too. I know we're gonna get some more Hightower content in the next book, and it would be really cool to see if basically the entire Reach was at this point allying themselves with Aegon. That would be I don't know how Dany breaks that, man, because the Stormlands are out of her reach at this point. The North, I don't know what the North is doing in this point either. The North and the Vale, like Littlefinger's got the Vale. No idea who he sides with, if he sides with anybody in this particular conflict.
Oh, can you imagine a Marjorie Aegon alliance? Oh, Marjorie's like, you know what? People always call us sexist pigs or misogynists. Do you even hear us gush about Marjorie Tyrell and how perfect she is as a candidate to be queen, or just like a political animal? She's perfect. She's like one of the best out there.
Oh, who's even better? Gam Tyrell, baby. Olena.
Oh, I think you say Old Nan.
Okay, Old Nan. She's the warden of the North. She's my warden of the North, and then Olena's the queen. She's the ruler of the Seven Kingdoms, man. Okay. I think that her head is actually the shape of that headdress she has right there. You take off that headdress, it's still that shape. It's just her skull.
Oh, dude. It's just form-fitting this whole time.
Yeah, exactly, dude. 5D brain.
Yeah, the whole thing in the North right now, I'm kind of not concerned with. Stannis coming and potentially taking it in the books is something I'm very interested in at that point. But all the stuff of like the Long Night, I don't know, just knowing how dumb it was done in the TV show, which I shouldn't hold that against it, but I just really don't care about the Long Night at all. Like, I really just don't care. I really just care about all the other political intrigues. And another reason why I kind of like going back into George's Fire and Blood, and also history of A Song of Ice and Fire, or, the history of Westeros. I'm trying to remember what the book title is, but anyway, all of those histories are great, which is way more interesting to me, and that's why I'm more focused on like how our boy Aegon can sit on the Iron Throne, because that's all I want. I just want somebody that I can actually get behind sitting on the Iron Throne. I really don't want Bran, who's been groomed and basically brain swapped with Blood Raven, the most cringe man in Westeros, or possibly Dany. Neither of those two, which, I mean, I guess betting odds are Bran, I guess. He is the highest.
Yes, and also, I don't even know if this is a popular theory, but please no Jon Snow. If Jon Snow ends up being like, this ultimate Uzura high figure, and he ends the Long Night, it's like, fine, keep it up there with the story that I don't really care about much, right? Like, they could make me care about the Long Night. It might happen in the future, especially if Stannis plays a big part in it, and they start including the other kingdoms. It could be kind of cool. I think there's a way it could be done. In fact, I want to make a video at some point talking about how they could have done the end of Game of Thrones to make the White Walkers actually interesting, because I think there is a way. It would just have to be a multi-phase fight. They fight him in Winterfell, they fight him at Harrenhal, they fight him in King's Landing, and then they realize, oh, wait, shit, we got to go north of the wall to like some fucking Ice Kingdom or something where the true Night King or whoever actually is. That'd be really cool.
Real quick on that. How disappointed would you be if in The Winds of Winter, if that book came out, that they actually solved the Long Night right down in that book? Like midway through,
it's so lame, and then I'm concerned about that in a way because of the
fight hasn't even begun.
Being the final. It hasn't even begun, and that's one big thing in Game of Thrones. I also much more so care about the political intrigue. But the White Walker thing, the others, the Long Night is established. That is an established plot, and it's established as the background main plot. Like, it's the first scene in Game of Thrones, right? And it's the first thing that we see in Game of Thrones, the book as well, like the backstory with the Night's Watch people. It has to be the final conflict, or it has to be the final pivotal crux of the series. It has to be. Maybe you could have a little bit of drama afterward, establishing who the king is going to be, but all this political stuff, I think, needs to get at least somewhat resolved prior to that happening. And I think, listen, just to wrap it all back to Young Griff, I think a good way to do that is to have him sitting on the throne at the time. And you could even have a situation where he sits on the throne, he has completely successfully won over the people, and Dany is pissed about it, but maybe she accepts it. Maybe she does agree to help fight the others or whatever ends up happening. And in the process, Aegon dies. That would be like a good way, I think, for him maybe to die if he went out in a somewhat semi-heroic way. But then there's just so many of these like self-sacrificial heroic figure prospects already, like Stannis, Jon Snow. We don't need another one. So really, I just want to see, I think Aegon sitting the throne indefinitely is a good way to go.
Yeah, it would be. And if Dany comes over, and I'm trying to kind of line this up with like the books with what we see in the TV show, which I just think so much of what we see in later seasons of Game of Thrones is not even going to happen anywhere
Hope
near.
not.
Yeah, I really hope not. And that's why I also tell people, highly suggest them to watch Game of Thrones, get them, hooked in on this universe, and then hopefully they can just read the books and see where it kind of diverts and how much better the books are than the TV show. Because, dude, it's still good. Like, the story's still good up to this point, right, in A Dance of Dragons, the book. So if Dany comes over to Dragonstone and Aegon is sitting in King's Landing, right?
Yeah, sitting on Jon Condom's lap.
He's sitting on Jon Condom's lap. And there's a threat of the White Walkers coming down, because that's where Dany goes. She like kind of does some stuff down south, but then, or she does stuff down south, right? The loot train, or the loot crate battle, right? The loot crate battle.
Yeah, Battle of Loot Crate.
Jon comes down to meet her and basically proposes, like, we should go do this thing. I should show you this. You need to see this thing, right? Do you think anything like that would pull her away from her choice or her destined belief that she needs to sit the Iron Throne now? Like, I just don't see that happening.
I want it to be no. I want it to be no. I think it's almost character assassination to have her go up there and help him, especially the way they did in the show. It's like she wasn't even in love with Jon at that point. She was just that good of a person. She's so good. She breaks the wheel and cares about the small folk. It's like, no, she has worked for this one sole purpose. It's like, okay, yeah, this White Walker thing that is totally unconfirmed. Maybe it's true. Maybe it's not. I'll deal with it after honestly, it would have been a super quick, simple thing to do, to take King's Landing with 3 dragons. It would have been insanely fast.
Yeah.
If, not knowing about the Scorpions, which she didn't know about. So I don't know why she didn't just take that real quick. Would have taken 2 seconds, especially considering her transit time in the last 2 seasons of Game of Thrones. So I don't know why. Yeah, in the book, they better not do it that way. I think it would be terrible if they don't have her try to take King's Landing first. And this might be the thing, man. It might be. We've talked about it in a lot of our what ifs, but if she has a dragon, can't take King's Landing with it, but survives. Young Griff has a dragon as well, Rhaegal.
Yeah,
and then
if he does,
Viserion ends up getting taken by Euron, because he's going to be an endgame boss too on the human side. If he takes that bad boy with the horn that controls dragons, dude, shit. That would be a cool way to fight the White Walkers, like a 3-tiered, like 3 factions that all hate each other, but they have to unite against a common foe, and then it gets sorted out kind of in the middle. It'd be a good Act 3, man. And along the way, you could have some treachery going on, like Euron, betraying the allies or whatever. There's a lot of different ways it could go. I think that's one of the main candidates.
And while all 3 of them are fighting, the one true king rises above it all with his Lightbringer sword, dude. Oh, dude.
Oh, man, his bald head shining just as bright as his sword.
Hey, thanks for watching this video. Be sure to subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and smash that like button.
Or not. We don't care.